Evening and welcome to this meeting organised by the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign and UCU Members for Ukraine. I'm Liz Lawrence and I'm one of the organisers of UCU Members for Ukraine. And part of this meeting is to be a pre-conference fringe for UCU, the University and College Union. Natalie Kopytko will chair the session with our speakers, and we're very pleased to welcome this evening. Our speakers are Ivanna Vynna from the Ukrainian intersectional feminist organisation Bilkis, Ostapenko from the Ukrainian educators organisation Progresylni, and Mike Kearney from Ukraine Solidarity Network and the National Education Union, one of our sibling unions. Right, first of all, I'd like to say a few things about Ukraine Solidarity work in UCU. At our annual conference last year in 2024, UCU voted to affiliate to the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign. Since then, information about Ukraine Solidarity has featured in the union's regular weekly mailings to UCU members. The UCU national banner was on the Ukraine Solidarity demonstration on the 22nd of February in London this year. UCU is mobilising and supporting the 1st June demonstration that the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign has called. This is demanding the return of the Ukrainian children who've been abducted by Russia. And this is part of an international mobilisation for the return of the children. We will have a UCU contingent with our national UCU banner on this demonstration. And UCU will be giving out leaflets about the event to the delegates to our annual conference. UCU's annual conference this year is in Liverpool from the 23rd to 26th of May. And the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign will have a stall at this conference. We'll also be leafleting the conference as delegates arrive, and we'll try and organise a photo solidarity picture. If you are at conference, please visit the stall. And if you're not coming, but you know other people from your branch who are coming, please do encourage them to visit the stall. In terms of motions going to the conference, we have a lot of motions. We don't know quite how many will get reached for debate. We would recommend support for motion 79 from Yorkshire and Humberside region. This motion is titled No Invasions, Annexations, Occupations or Ethnic Cleansing. It sets down universal anti-imperialist principles for the union's international work. We think it is the right sort of motion that we need to make it plain that the union should oppose all imperialisms, all annexations of territories, and have universal standards on human rights. We would recommend opposition to motion 72. This is the second of the two welfare, not warfare motions. This is one from the University of Brighton. The problem with this motion, it rules out in advance any British involvement in any peacekeeping operations in Ukraine. Now, we think it's premature to take a position on this matter at the moment because the text can foster illusions that peace in Ukraine is imminent. But in fact, Putin shows no intention of ending the invasion or agreeing to terms which should give Ukraine genuine peace. He's not turned up in Turkey today for the peace talks. So we think there are problems with that motion, that we shouldn't be taking a position on these matters at this time. Anyway, these motions are likely to be debated on the Monday afternoon of conference, which is the last session. Right, so with those comments, can I say I'm really pleased people are at this meeting. I'd like to hand over to Natalie now to chair the session with the speakers. Thank you.
Hey Liz, thank you. I'm Natalie Kopytko, so I'm also a founding member of UCU Members for Ukraine and Vice Chair Ukraine Solidarity Campaign. Really excited to have these three speakers today because I've heard all of them speak and really wanted to amplify their voices. So Ivanna, if you want to start sharing your slides, I was just going to show, hopefully you can share your slides. I maybe have to make you a co-host.
Okay.
Are you able to share?
Mm-hmm. I'm sending the request.
Oh, thank you. So this arrived yesterday from the feminist group that Ivanna is representing, Bilkis. So we've got 2 t-shirts to sell at Congress, along with lots of packets of feminist stickers. They're in Ukrainian, but they've kindly written the English on the back of each package. So we'll be selling those at our table at Congress to support the work of the feminist group.
It seems that I have some troubles with sharing my screen because of like settings connected to security. I hope I will fix it.
Let's see. I have to make you a host or anything. Let's see. Make co-host. Let's see if that works.
Okay, share.
There we go.
Yeah, do you see something?
Yeah, we see your screen.
Yeah. Okay, I'm so glad that I fixed it. Yeah, first of all, I want to say thank you for inviting our organization to take part in this event because yeah, it's so important when you live in Ukraine, when you're Ukrainian, just to feel that that somebody cares about us and that like you want to help us and that you know. That we need this help and yeah, you can do it and yeah, thank you for this help for this event and for all of you. Yeah, and I will start my speech. Yeah, I'm Ivanna Vynna, and I'm the participant. I'm the activist of Bilkis, feminist, intersectional feminist organization. Yeah, and the first I want to tell that if Russia has not yet fought with you on the battlefield, it is still fighting with you, but in the information field, influencing elections in your country, spreading disinformation and promoting propaganda. It denies the existence of Ukrainians as a separate nation and resists the recognition of imperial policies as criminal. It destroys nations striving for decolonization, threatens women with sexual violence, which has become its military strategy, kidnaps children, and demonizes queer people. Even its so-called liberal voices serve one purpose: to justify and normalize Russia. And Ukraine is allegedly to blame, provoked, allowed too much, and other rhetoric often applied to those suffering from violence. Therefore, we must remember that the guilt always lies with those who first took up arms and crossed an internationally recognized border, including one recognized by themselves. In times of war, planning becomes especially difficult. The front line and political landscape are constantly shifting. Could we have imagined even a year ago North Korean troops on Ukrainian territory? Or predicted that the US, for example, would cease to be a reliable ally for us? We are witnessing a rightward shift and a reduction in funding for the civic society sector. No Ukrainian organization can currently plan long term. And if it's small, feminist, and local like us, Bilkis, even more so. We focus on current projects and plan some new ones. We keep going as long as we can. For us, as a civic society organization, it's so important to contribute to Ukraine's transformation by amplifying the voices of women and queer people, addressing issues of violence and inequality, and promoting inclusivity. And we made significant progress in these areas. The lifting of the ban on certain professions for women, the updated official spelling rules recognizing feminine word forms, and the steps taken to combat gender-based violence, Ukraine is evolving despite the immense challenges of war. Ukraine society is becoming increasingly aware of gender equality issues and the need for decolonization. This is a logical continuation of our cultural and intellectual tradition interrupted by Soviet occupation. I need to change slide. Yeah. Our feminist movement has been closely intertwined with the movement for independence from empires, at that time the Russian and Austrian empires. In 2024, we celebrated the 140th anniversary of the feminist movement in Ukraine. However, resistance to Russian colonization is still a question of our survival. And it is for many countries in Central and Eastern Europe, because if Ukraine does not stand strong, they will be next. Russian propagandists openly talk about this in prime time on their television. As for the activities of the Bilkis organization, we are united by 5 core values: feminism, the right for women's right, horizontality, absence of hierarchies and domination, collective decision-making, open communication, equality of voices. Social equality, we care about the right of vulnerable groups, social justice, and the development of tools for public influence. Decolonization, we oppose colonial policies and aggressive wars. We stand for the independence and development of previously colonized nations. And intersectionality, we talk about discrimination, keeping in mind the multiplicity of inequalities and power relations that cause it. We started our activities in 2019 by collecting and publishing stories for the 16 Days Against Gender-Based Violence. This remains our annual tradition. We engage local female illustrators and photographers to share posts on social media and spread the stories of Ukrainian women to create a space that condemns violence and support one another. In November 2024, we launched. I will. Yeah, I mute this. We launched the Femme Objective in English. And by the way, do you still hear me? Because I hope that yeah, thank you. In November 2024, we launched the Femme Objective in English Femlands Film Club, where we gather twice a month to hold feminist film screenings, lectures, and discussions. Among the films we have shown at our film club, The Diary of Teenage Girl, Persepolis, Blink Twice, Disclosure, and many others. On March 8th this year, we organized a screening of the film When the Trees Fall by Ukrainian director Marisa Nikityuk, and the filmmaker herself held a lecture on female sexuality in cinema. We also have a YouTube project, Dear Diary. It consists of video essays about society, film, and pop culture through the lens of intersectional feminism. So far, 8 episodes have been released, and our channel has over 5,000 subscribers. Topics covered in the videos include compulsive heterosexuality, rape culture, toxic tolerance, and many others. Most Bilkis participants are vegans. For us, it's important to care for the environment, resist thoughtless consumerism, and provide people the opportunity to get rid of unnecessary things and receive necessary ones for free. In 2024, we launched our social project Space of Things, and people can leave something that they don't need and to take something that they need there. In addition, we published two zines. It's like small activist magazines. And the electronic versions are available in the description of our Instagram profile. The first is titled Activist and tells the stories of grassroots women activists who are protecting us on the front lines, providing humanitarian aid or helping Ukraine survive in other ways. The second self-published zine, Others Just Like Us, is a collection of stories about the lives of homeless women. These are reflections on the female experience of homelessness and ways to build solidarity. And of course, we also organize street actions. On March 8th this year, we co-organized the action Demand Justice, Not Women in Lviv and put up posters against violence towards women in Kyiv. Another of our action planned for Transgender Day of Visibility was unfortunately disrupted, but we are fighting to make it happen at a later date. The Bilkis team regularly holds lectures and workshops on intersectional feminism and gender equality for young people aged 16 to 25. Our most recent event took place in Kramatorsk in early April of this year. Our Instagram profile is essentially a separate project. There we regularly share informative posts on women's and LGBTQI+ rights issues in Ukraine. These include long reads on misogyny in various spheres, medicine, history, etc., recommendations for feminist and queer books and films, event announcements, and more. Our Instagram page is viewed over 230,000 times per month, and we currently have over in this screen it's like 6,000, but now we have already 7,000 subscribers, and these are our organic numbers. And at the moment, we are seeking financial resources as funding for gender equality programs has been drastically reduced due to the right-wing shift. We need the funds to support our current projects as well as to create new ones. For example, we want to start translating leftish feminist literature into Ukrainian, and we already started, as there are currently very few such translations. We would also like to create a project featuring interviews with women from various professions. We would greatly appreciate any financial or informational support for our organization. And also we attend international events to like this one, to remind the world that the Russian-Ukrainian war is ongoing. And yeah, and it's more about previous slide. And Russia is no, not this one. Okay. Let it be. And Russia is the aggressor in it, just as it was with Ichkeria, Moldova, and Georgia. It first forcibly Russifies, destroying local culture and intellectuals, and then pretends it has been this way forever. Culture in the hands of an empire is a weapon of appropriation, devaluation, and destruction. To counter this not only within Ukraine, we plan to focus more on international advocacy in the future. We find it very valuable to seek points of connection in our experiences and cultures with countries that support us, to create joint informative projects and mutually amplify our voices. Yeah, thank you so much for attention. And yeah, the last one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. I think we'll do questions at the end, so we can do like a general question round. But thank you for sharing your work, and I really hope we can work together. And I'd be actually interested in getting you maybe to do a lecture for me, for my students. So we'll maybe think about that too offline. But we'll move to Mike to speak next. I was just going to mention too, at our stall, I'm doing a lot of plugs. One of our UCU members is part of this, putting this book together called Queer Ukraine, because you were talking about LGBTQ+ voices and intersectionality and decolonization. There's a decolonization thread that goes through this book as well. So we'll have this at the stall available. It's around £8 and proceeds go to supporting LGBTQ+ charities in Ukraine. So anyway, I will hand it over to Mike from National Educators Union in the UK, based in York, like me. And he's going to talk about his recent trip to Ukraine and also NEU's work on Ukraine. Go ahead.
Natalie, thank you so much. I don't know how I'm going to follow on from that. That was so interesting. Thank you. And I would love to get your contact so that we can work together within the NEU alongside the UCU as well. Natalie, I have just sent you a little video on WhatsApp. I'm not sure if you're able to get it up on your screen. I don't know how to do it. It's a little video, but if not, it's absolutely fine. From the LGBT Kiev Pride group I met up with a couple of weeks ago. So hi everyone, my name's Mike. I am from the NEU, the National Education Union. And for those of you that don't know us, we are the largest education union in Europe with over 500,000 members. And I'll just start you off a little bit with a background of what we've been doing, how we've built the NEU Ukraine Solidarity Group, and some of the obstacles we've overcome. I know that you have got those experiences in UCU as well. So it's good that we're able to share some of those experiences. But all of this began when I first took in a Ukrainian refugee back in 2022, shortly after the invasion. And I then went over to visit Danil's family, and we just became the dearest friends from that moment. And so I've been over to Ukraine a couple of times. I only got back a couple of weeks ago, and I will be going this day next week to go and visit more educators and trade unionists around the country. But the NEU Ukraine Solidarity Group was a unique and determined bunch of souls, much like yourselves, who came together just through different experiences, often through word of mouth, about 3 years ago. And we have just grown exponentially since into quite a big group within the union. We face, like you, many barriers within the NEU to passing a motion. In fact, you passed your motion before we managed to do so, so congratulations. And for 3 years, we were thwarted from passing a motion at conference, much to do with some of the left I am also incredibly left, just have got a different view on things, but some of the more entrenched members of the SWP within the union who blocked us at every stage. And this year, thankfully, we managed to pass a motion at conference, meaning we have got a good foundation for building within the union, and that will allow us and open up for us different channels within our international solidarity group. Because of the pressure, though, that we've been placing internally on the union, even though we didn't have a position on Ukraine, we still this year have already managed to get about £60,000 of funding from the NEU to different organisations within Ukraine. So we've already done a lot of work through our internal pressure, but now we're going to be able to do an awful lot more. And some of the, and I think the speaker before me has said about the media war that Russia are waging, it's absolutely true. And I remember standing with Daniil and a couple of other Ukrainian activists on the steps of NEU conference last year and challenging somebody handing out a leaflet. And I had visited Bucha and Irpin just a few months after the Russians left, and I heard firsthand the accounts of what happened. And we had educators stood on the entrance to NEU conference telling me that Bucha and Irpin was not real, that it was all falsified, made up by the Ukrainian government and the Western imperialist alliance. It didn't take long until I had them escorted away, but we have been fighting these extremists who are spreading disinformation. And so it's really important that we all together as trade unionists in the NEU and UCU do not let up, because those people are not letting up, and we will continue that fight, and we must continue to speak loudly within our unions. I got back a couple of weeks ago from visiting different areas of Ukraine. Thanks a lot in help to the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign for putting me in contact with different groups. I think what we share within UCU and the NEU is our focus on education. And I think that's where I believe we should work a lot more closely moving forward in things that we do and how we can show solidarity and build on those links we have together. I visited different groups within in Kiev to begin with. I visited the Kiev Polytechnic Institute and was taken around on a visit for the day by the Students' Union. It was incredibly interesting to see that, to learn how the Students' Union and the Educators' Unions interact in a way that we don't see in the UK. So the students are also members of the trade union, which just absolutely blew my mind. I thought this is an incredible way to build that solidarity and that grouping of that working class struggle, rather than separating us into the silos that we have. And at KPI, I was shown a lot of the voluntary work that they were doing. They are making all of the trench candles. I have them here, and mobile aerials for troops on the front line. But what was clear is that this was an organic thing that they were doing, much like hundreds of thousands of other Ukrainians. And they are desperate for Western support and funds to continue with that work. So the trench candles that they have are used by the troops on the front line to keep them warm, especially during winter. And the mobile aerials are donated so that they're put up in trees so that they can use them as a sort of a safe way to communicate with each other. And a lot of the different combat units on the front are relying on these different sort of organic groupings that are popping up around the country. I went down to Kryvyi Rih a day after the attack that where the Russians murdered 39 children, including the 19 children, and it was the most awful experience. I don't know how these children go through this every single day. And I think as educators in the UK, with hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian children, we need to share those experiences with our children so we can be better teachers here in the UK for the Ukrainian children we have. Because even though I was aware of what's happening, and even though as teachers we do try, and we are empathetic, and we do try to think about what we're doing for the children and young people in our charge, you can't really understand it until you've experienced it. And the Ukrainian children here will spend every day with their parents there, back on the front lines. And what I experienced from having my refugee here was I could tell when something was wrong, because he would go very quiet and pensive, and it's because there was an attack. And every single day, the children that we stand up in front of, they don't know whether their mother, their father, their brother, their sister, their cousins are alive or not. And it was just so profound to know that this is the experience that they have every day. And we as educators should really take that and work that into our practice to understand what they're dealing with. It was great to get to visit the colleges and the solidarity movement. I spent an evening with the local solidarity group, and it was unique in that they were just some of the most wonderful, welcoming people when they had absolutely nothing. And they opened up their arms, they opened up their homes to me. I stayed in their homes. And we spent an evening volunteering. They volunteer every week educating children in English because of the move, Ukraine's move towards the West, and they know that English will be a very important topic, a very important subject. So all children in Ukraine now have to learn English at school. They've lowered the age at which children have to learn English. And so the local trade unionists are taking it upon themselves to volunteer to bring these children in every single week to give them extra English lessons, considering these teachers have worked all day and they just know how important this is. It was so heartwarming to see what they were doing. But again, they need our help and support with all sorts of different things with education over there, be it what they were doing at university or be it what they're doing on a voluntary basis with English. It was so important that we get their voices here so that they can help us to focus on where we will be most useful to support education workers in Ukraine. What was also really interesting, and you learn things that you would never have realized, and I went round for a day and visited a college in Ukraine down in Kryvyi Rih. And before the war, the college sector was desperately underfunded. But since the war began, the funding has been cut, and that's not a criticism. But what it's meant is that on a practical level, you walk into the buildings, you walk into the sports halls, and they are now all crumbling because they've not been able to afford heating for 3 years. And all of the plaster on the walls is falling off. They're covered in mold. The windows are also falling out because of it. And they don't have the funds to repair all of the buildings that the children and the young adults in college need every single day. And it's severely limiting the educational opportunities. And this is where I think we in the NEU and the UCU can work together to do whatever we can to support these people who so desperately need our help in education in Ukraine. I also managed to speak to, and that's the video I've sent to you, and it will be great. I will hopefully get Mikhail over to do an event with us at some point in the future, who's one of the organisers of Kiev Pride. And He gave up 3-4 hours of his time to speak to me about the current issues that LGBT people face in Ukraine and the kind of practical support that we can give to them during this time of war. What was obvious almost unanimously from the educators to the students and to the LGBT plus people in Ukraine was that they do not want to capitulate on Putin or Trump's terms. And that was a word that they told me time and time again. We will not capitulate because of what Trump tells us. And for LGBT plus people in Ukraine, it was a time a couple of years ago of immense, huge worry, because living the life of an LGBT person in Russia is suppression, terror, and ultimately, in so many cases, death. And LGBT people, alongside women, the marginalized, disabled, are the most vulnerable, and they were at the forefront of fighting against this imperial invasion because they know what the alternative is, and they cannot give up, and we cannot give up, because if we do, we know what's going to happen to them. We see it in Russia. And it was so wonderful being in Kiev and going to speak to Mikhail and hear what's happening, but also simply going and seeing the freedom that LGBT plus Ukrainians have. Is it perfect? No. Is it like walking down the street in York? No. But there is immense freedom that they have in Ukraine. They have bars, they have areas, they can do things that make even me blush. And it was so wonderful to see these people being so free in their home cities. And we have to help to protect them at every single stage. One of the things that they have asked if we can do is to speak. One of the concerns at the moment with Kiev Pride is that they are there are concerns around far-right agitation in the country and safety. And so they're seeking support from different European countries for areas to actually put on the Pride event this year. They're actually, as I was there, they were going off to the Dutch embassy, who has offered for free rooms and space for them to put on these events. And it's something absolutely we should be getting our MPs to lobby for, to support not just LGBT people, but every single group in Ukraine. And the speaker who's just was before me, because we have the capability and we've got the space. I've walked past the British embassy in Kiev 1,000 times, and I would be really proud one day to be walking past the British embassy in Kiev with a whole load of the LGBT community and walking them into a hall so that they can go and celebrate and learn from each other. They also have lots of things you made. I liked your inspiration for the t-shirt. So it's just about constantly highlighting everything that they're doing, and they produce so many fantastic different materials, which I will purchase more of to share with the UCU, so that if ever we're, say, on Pride events for UCU or the NEU, that we can give these out and constantly highlight the voices of LGBT plus people. So some really wonderful stuff going on. But what I'm trying to do now that we've passed the motion and UCU are already there, thankfully, is to build those links in Ukraine, and to build those links with all the people here on the screen and with educational workers in order to direct as much support as we possibly can, alongside producing support for NEU members here in the UK, supporting the hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian children that we are honoured to have in our care every single day. So I apologise. I think I've given you more questions than answers, but it was an inspirational trip to go and speak to people and to hear and be a voice for them back in the UK. Nobody wins in war, and what the Ukrainian people are going through is unfathomable to any of us in the UK. But if there's one thing that I am delighted that has come out of this horrific experience, is that I have got to meet some of the most wonderful, caring, loving, inspirational Ukrainian people who will be my dearest friends and family for the rest of my life. And I want to continue to build on that and work on that. And we will be there until the absolute end and afterwards to help to rebuild Ukraine. So thank you for bringing me. And I look forward to working with you a lot more in the future.
Present Kyiv Pride,
Thank you.
the most visible queer event and queer organization in Ukraine. LGBTQI people in Ukraine are standing strong, all of us working on defending our country, whether it's on the front lines or in the somewhat peaceful territories like Kyiv itself. We continuously raise funds, buy armor or drones for our defenders, etc. And we will continue resisting the Russian invasion, because we don't want to live in a country where oppression and aggression is legalized, where same-sex couples have to hide due to fear of being arrested or attacked. We have been informed of terrible living situation of queer people under Russian occupation, instances of rape and physical assault taking place. We don't want this aggression to expand to other parts of Ukraine. Thus, it is extremely important for the UK to continue providing the funds and weapons to Ukraine, giving us the ability to stand on our ground. Together to equality and victory was the slogan of Kyiv Pride 2024. And it still remains true. Only together we'll push back the Russian aggression.
Your sound, Natalie, I think it's, yeah, we can't hear you. I'm so sorry. Can I just make one really quick plea to any UCU educators here or who might see this in the future and you have Ukrainian students? One thing to really just even begin to scratch the surface of what Ukrainian children and young people are going through. Please download the Alert app. Download the Alert app. And if you've got a Ukrainian student from one of the regions, whatever region they're from in Ukraine, add the region onto the Alert app and listen to the sounds that will regularly come in, warning you of incoming missiles, drones, essentially the potential for death, so that you will then begin to, in one tiny little way, understand what our students are going through and what their families are going through back in Ukraine, just to help a little bit with that.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Can you hear me now? Perfect. That happened yesterday. It switches mics on me. It's even though there should be just one mic. Thank you so much for that. Again, heartfelt, really heartfelt words. It means a lot to have such a strong ally for Ukrainians. So we'll move next to our final speaker, Anna, who I think was with us a year ago for the webinar. So it's great to hear from you again. And I know we still need to catch up on our research interests too at some point, but for now, talk about Ukraine more. So welcome, Anna. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very inspired by the previous speakers, and I'm very happy to be here with you once again. probably listening to Mike, I was thinking that I had my legal career before, and of course, all this infringement and violation of human rights is really a great challenge because I will talk now about the education, but this is just the memory that came into my mind that after the invasion, I had a lecture for my students on human rights. And imagine how I had to speak about the human rights in front of the students where they constantly face this violation, and you tell about all these conventions and about all these regimes. And this is really hard because what people face every day is absolutely contrary to what is law and what we protect under the law. And of course, there are a lot of challenges during the war, but I represent here and I will talk here today about the education mainly because I represent the NGO that gathers educators and lecturers of the universities, but also teachers. So I will talk about the higher education today. Because that is your focus of the UCU, but just to mention that we also support the vocational educators, colleges, teachers, and of course all the education in general. Our main idea, because we started as a community in 2017, Progresylni, and later we were formed as NGO, but our main idea was to introduce all the progressive changes that we have worldwide to bring the best practices into Ukrainian education, because it suffered after the reforms that were made after the Soviet Union period, and we wanted it to be modern, we wanted it to be progressive, and this was our idea. Of course, when the war started, our NGO tried to support as much as we can to adapt to these needs of the educators. And I will today probably start speaking about how we educate in the times of war, what challenges we really face. And then I will also introduce some of the examples at Progresylni, how we support our members, how we support universities, and what we actually do to make education better. So the main idea is that if we fight for independence, we are thinking about the future development of the Ukraine. And of course, we want our children and our students to be competitive. Just imagine already 3 years passed. So those students that entered a bachelor's degree, they graduate this year, and they all their students' life was spent actually during the war. So we can't postpone education. We don't have time for that. And being here and being involved into the research project, I also have my children here that go to school and to the university. I feel that this is such a big problem if we see other students and even students from Russia who still have better, and from other countries, from all other countries where children go to the school in the normal environment, and they they don't have these psychological problems, all these attacks. They have a good environment for their education. So we can't put our children in the worst situation, and what we do is that we try to still maintain like high level of the standards of the education, try to promote it, and our main idea is we can't postpone it. So we have to do what we can do today to bring the best education and the best practices. So this is our aim. And of course, I would like probably maybe to introduce some examples, if I can share the screen. I didn't do the presentation, but I will share some of the examples just to show you about the destruction of the infrastructure. So the main idea that we see is circulated worldwide, not only in the UK, is the idea that the Russian army is bombing just the military objects, and the civilians are not suffering, and the educational institutions are not suffering, or it is occasionally by mistake, something just slightly touches some objects, and they are not actually the aim, and they're not the target of the attack. That's not true, because we have a survey made in 2024. At that time, the number of the educational institutions that were partially destroyed was 3,798, and 365 were completely destroyed. So they just can't be renovated. And if I will share the whole desktop, and we'll share some of the probably videos here. So this is my university. If Mike or some of you, well, I know some of you have been to Kiev, you would probably remember the red building is the Taras Shevchenko University of Kiev. This is my university, where I was deputy head of the dean at the time when the war started. So this university is in the very center, probably 1.5 kilometers from the center of Kiev. So just in the historic area. It was attacked 4 times. It's in Kiev. It's not the eastern part of the Ukraine. Here you see, I will just show you the level of destruction. So you see the destruction. These are the buildings of the university. So this is the building of the university. This is the faculty where we had a swimming pool. This is the biological faculty. You see all the glass and the students helping here. So this is one of the examples. It was attacked 4 times. Even my department was attacked. This is another example. This is the Academy of Science in Kharkiv. Academy of Science. This is another example, if I can relocate you here. So last time I told you about our initiative, what we do in Progresylni. We try to post some videos in YouTube to show the level of destruction. So this is another building of the university in Mykolaiv. And this is another example of the school, just to show you that there is universities, scientific institutions, and also schools. So this is the school completely destroyed. And just to pay your attention that this is Zhytomyr. Zhytomyr is 90 kilometers from here. It's the center of Ukraine. So it's even not the eastern part of the Ukraine. That's the level of the destruction. There was a big school. So with these levels of destruction, I will now go to our side of the Progresylni. So my main idea is that the educational institutions are the target. And I think that that's made because of the idea to threaten Ukrainians and the general idea to destroy the normal life. Apart from just attacking and physical destruction, it's also they attacked all the normal process that we have in Ukraine. The normal process of education, of healthcare, of international communication. So to make the state like invalid or somehow like to show that some of the processes are not just going in the normal way as it has in other states. So what we do in terms of education, we try to face these challenges and to support our educators as much as we can. So first of all, I would like to invite you just to look at our site. I will probably pop this into the chat and to show you the links that we have. At the bottom here, we have the information about us and also our links, so that you can, our partners and our links in social media with some numbers and examples of what we do. And you can see that we permanently communicate with our members, with our educators. We try to make this sphere of education dynamic. We try to support with the initiatives of the Ministry of Education and Science. We try to bring our friends and our colleagues from the European Union, from the particular universities, from other NGOs, to show that they see that education is important, that we are not following this idea that we don't need education in times of war, because that's very supportive for the educators as well. What I wanted to pay your attention to is our initiatives. I think last time I told you about them, but there are some updates. So, for example, what we did during the last year, we have our departments, we call them isles of Progresylni, like an islands, because we have them in 80 universities already. So we tried to spread our initiatives and our activities within this university and to build a network. That's very important because as you know, universities nowadays are relocated. Some of them are relocated. So some of the universities are sharing one building, and sometimes they can share the best practices, how they did it, how they mitigated all the problems with the documentation. A lot is done in these terms from the Ministry of Education, because we have a lot of things done online, actually, a lot of documents that can be loaded online. The process of application, enrollment, it can also be done online. So we do have support here. We try to support, and we have our initiative on vocational education. Why we think this is important? Because of the situation in the country, we have a huge destruction of the infrastructure. So because of this, what we have is the demand of the people who will work to rebuild Ukraine. We also are thinking about engaging people who have disabilities. And nowadays, we have a lot of people, former soldiers, just civilians who suffered, who have disabilities. And we want them to be engaged in the social life. For some of them, we will need to provide additional education. We will need to support them and to give them the possibility to work and we also have this initiative, Russia Must Pay, and I would appreciate if you could join this link in YouTube, and we will post some new videos there. They are short ones, but this is how you can see about the destruction, and this is a great proof for those who think that this is something made I don't know as Mike told, that this is a kind of construction or something that was just I don't know, that we pretend that there are distractions and they're actually not there. So that's not true. What we do on behalf of the organization, we do online courses and online support. We have a training program for trainers, and we adopted it after the beginning of the war because we tried to get a psychologist to provide the psychological support. I would like also to support the idea that Mike started to talk about, because some of the educators, especially teachers in schools, and also the lecturers at the university and the academics, apart from just delivering lectures, in terms if they have an alarm, they are responsible for bringing the group into the basement. They are responsible for the first aid in case this is needed. They have to address some of the psychological issues. For example, just imagine the normal, I don't know, Mother's Day that we celebrated a month ago, and imagine those children that don't have mothers, or those whose parents are dead. That's a very triggering events, and for the administration of the school and for the teachers, sometimes they don't know how to address all these challenges. We also think about the support that should be given in terms of educational process in the university. What I mean, that in times of war, we can't demand the students to meet the deadlines, because sometimes we still have to be in this framework. So we still have to ask them to submit the assessments on time, you know, to pass the exams on time. But on the other hand, if they have some problems, for example, with connection, the normal situation for Ukrainian education system is to have exams, for example, in the first half of day and in the second half of day for those who asked for support and who said that unfortunately we can't connect, we don't have electricity, we don't have access. Can we have another time for that assessment? And in terms of the of the protection of the rights of the educators, this is a very triggering event, because this is an overwhelming pressure. We still have a very modest salary, and in some of the institutions it's also cut. But on the other hand, the pressure is much higher, because, for example, if you have a group of students and some of them during the semester, you see that they don't have a permanent connection, what do is you work with the group, and then you think about the special tasks that these persons should do to proceed with education. Some of the students are in the front line, or probably not in the front line, but they are they do some military service or some volunteering. So how these can be combined with the education, and all these psychological pressure that the educators also have. I don't think that there is a family in Ukraine whose father, brother, or son is not in the front line or somehow engaged into the war. This means that all the family suffers. That means that the women are suffering also more, because there is more pressure on whatever, just ordinary family routine or their work that they do. We do have our colleagues at the university who decided to join the army. Usually their positions are not occupied by others. So their lectures, all the tutorials, all this time is just divided between other members of that department. So of course we understand that in times of war, there obviously will be the bigger pressure, but what we do as an organization, what we are like having an advocacy campaign on asking the administration and also thinking about how we can support the educators even financially. For example, we have the initiative in the European Union Ukrainian facility, which is like instrument within the European strategy of the support of the Ukraine, and they have these funds to fund different projects. One of them is education. But when we actually asked on behalf of our NGO, so how do you spend this money given by the EU on the education? Most of them are spent on basements because of the old buildings, old university buildings. Some of the universities just can't provide the basement. So, for example, if the building is old and you have the basement, let's say for 400 people, and you have up to 2,000 of all the staff and students, you just can't provide the offline education. So what the universities do, they combine online and offline education. This is additional pressure on the educators, because sometimes you can have one lecture, for example, that you do in the university's building, and then like in 1 hour you have something online, you have to get home to do and also to provide as you understand, of course we have some presentations, but the format also matters. So if you deliver a lecture offline, this is one form of communication and tasks for students. If you do it online, that's different approach, and you have to upload some of the materials, give them more work on their own. So this is also like additional preparation for the teachers. So in terms of this program, we are doing the campaign on the advocacy. So we try to persuade that some of this money, apart from funding the transport because of destruction of the schools, like I showed you today, some students and pupils, they have to be transported to the school permanently. So there is a need in transport. So this transport and the basement and rebuilding of the auditoriums of the buildings themselves is the main things where the money is spent on. But we also think that we have to advocate, to support, and this is what we do. We try to collaborate with the ministry to persuade them that some of the funds should be also spent on financial support of the educators, because otherwise we will just lose people who are professionals and who worked for decades at the universities, because they won't be able to survive. Just to sum up, because I don't want to spend a lot of your time. So what we do as an organization, we do these online courses with the certificates which are free of charge for not only for members of the Progresylni, but also for all the educators. During our offline meetings, we provide the psychological support and we try to speak with the educators about their course of action. We also do a summit, like a big gathering of our members once a year. We communicate with them on the daily basis using all the social media that we have, and we've got a lot of followers. And we also do these advocacy campaigns. Of course, as it was told by Mike and by both of the speakers, actually, of course, the overall destruction means that we need funds for innovation. But I think that this is not the main I think this is not the main support that can be done within the trade union, because our collaboration is mostly about the solidarity. So I was thinking about what support can be given apart, like from the funds and from the military support. Of course, this is the informational support. What we want is the international community, our partners, to pay attention all the time that this is not fake, nothing is constructed, that people are suffering, that we still provide education. We have some good practices, and I appreciate a lot that Mike mentioned them. We do have good practices. We do have a very good platform called Now Rock, supported by our educators. This is for schools, where we have a lot of online quizzes for children, so they are actually able to learn or to catch up if they miss something. They are absolutely free of charge, supported by the ministry. I think that another good example will be the informational support. I mean, if we will have an opportunity to invite some of the representatives of UCU to participate in our events online or offline. Of course, I was also thinking that having the opportunity of making research project here at the university, I'm also engaged at, so I applied to a learning and teaching course, probably also have that in your universities. And this is also a very good opportunity to meet your colleagues, my colleagues, and to get some modern practices on teaching. And this is what I do, and I think that our members will also be very willing to participate in some of these programs or courses. I think that the solidarity between the trade unions also means that we can engage your representatives in some kind of sharing your experience about some advocacy campaigns, about the support, about your policy making practices, because we still face a lot of changes, and some of them are very not very well prepared, because we try to mitigate all these issues connected with the war. For example, what we have today is we have the program from our Ministry of Uniting the Universities, because some universities have lack of students because of their location, mostly on the east of Ukraine. So students are not very willing to go there, not because of the level of the university, but because of the environment which is there. So this campaign is also sometimes very very quick of uniting the universities, and we don't think this is a good practice. We try to protect the universities and the staff from being from falling apart, from being united into one university. So probably you have some examples of that campaigns that could be also beneficial. My experience is also about the collaboration in the sphere of research. I think that we have a lot of possibilities to apply for grants, and sometimes the researchers and the educators from Ukraine face the problem that they need international partners. We have a very, I think that the very successful scientific research in Ukraine, which are not very widely circulated, widely known, but they're still relevant, because I know that I'm in the community of the Ukrainian researchers here, and there are at least 200 people that I know who applied for grants together with British universities. for some international grants, and they were successful. For example, I'm conducting research on patenting of genome-edited technologies for agriculture. And, for example, for UK, it's relevant because they have a genetic act, a new act in March 2023. So a new, different from the European Union policy. And for Ukraine, it's beneficial because we're an agriculture country. So these policy papers are also very important. And this happens in different spheres. I know people that are engaged in the British Library. I know the people who are now in Oxford conducting research on archaeology. I know mathematicians. I know the researcher from Ukraine who joined the Royal Veterinary College. So I think that there are a lot of possibilities of collaboration, and sometimes Ukrainian educators, they just don't have these proper links, so that also could be beneficial. In terms of, I think that I will finish, but you're free to look at our website to see about our initiatives, about our blogs, about the topics we cover. So we are growing bigger from year to year, and I think that we are like we have a lot of organizations that are focused on teachers, on English teachers, on just teachers, but we are like the one that unite all the educators. We also have some students as members of our NGO, so we are always free to join any initiatives, collaborations. And what is important for us is solidarity, is the support. And we're very thankful for what is done within the solidarity campaign, and we are open to different forms of collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. I still use your group as an example of the best hybrid meeting I've ever been to. And I tell people how much we could do hybrid better, because Ukraine meetings had it down. So, and of course you do amazing work beyond just doing hybrid meetings well. I was going to see, because it's kind of like a lot of information to digest. So before we go to questions, I was going to see if Chris and maybe Rue wanted to speak about the current fundraisers and the March for Children coming up from Ukraine Solidarity Campaign. There we go. There's Chris.
Sorry. Beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. I don't know, does Rue want to speak or me? What do you want to do?
You go ahead first.
Okay.
If Rue wants to add anything.
So, just very quickly in terms of the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign, I think it's important to recognise that the war didn't begin in 2022. The war has been going on since 2014 in Ukraine, and the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign has existed since 2014, set up by a number of us. We're around a lot longer in that support, and in that time, the only trade unions who supported us were the ASLEV, the Train Drivers Union, and the National Union of Mine Workers, who helped set the campaign up. And so for all those years, the British trade union movement was being pumped full of poison and disinformation from Russia Today, from the Morning Star. The official policy of the TUC was more than sympathetic to the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics and to the separatist movement, a policy secured by the RMT, who explicitly supported the Russian occupation. So it's been a very long struggle that we've been waging to change that situation. And now we've changed it significantly. It's been pivotal that we have a different TUC policy. We have a string of trade unions affiliated with us now. You know, the hard work of our comrades, such as in UCU, PCS, the GMB, Unison, who are affiliated, ASLEV and NUM, who are all part of this campaign. Those 6 national trade unions are the ones affiliated. And we were also pivotal in the drafting of the Labour Party policy. So the situation is a complete reverse of what it had been for a very, very difficult number of years, in which we were very much a minority. And it has been a struggle that we shouldn't take for granted, because the Trump administration and the context we're in today has actually empowered the people who are opposed to us. And equally, unfortunately, the policy of our own government at the present time is feeding the opposition narratives against us as well. So, you know, there's an absolute necessity for the Ukraine Solidarity campaign. And if people want to support the labour movement in Ukraine and support self-determination in Ukraine, they should join the Ukraine Solidarity campaign and support the work we're doing. So in terms of what we're doing, I just want to touch on 2 things. One is our aid work with our comrades, particularly in the National Union of Mine Workers. There's been delivered to Ukraine a value of nearly £1 million worth of aid since February 2022. And one of the unions we've been supporting since 2014 has been the Independent Trade Union of Mine Workers. And particularly we've been raising money for the 10th Paramilitary Mining Rescue Unit in the Donetsk Oblast, who are engaged in rescue work in mines and in general communities. And they've appealed to us for more aid because a lot of the aid we took them now has been damaged by Russian bombing. One of the members of the squad has been killed during the period in which Trump cut off the warning systems and military aid, as we know. And a lot of the equipment is damaged. So we have an appeal, which I put in the chat, which we put out to buy drones for the unit for rescue work, which we're raising money for. We'll be raising more money for other equipment to assist the rescue workers in Donetsk. And I would ask also anyone who knows anyone in the Fire Brigade Union, they're going to be discussing affiliation to our campaign and support for Ukraine at their coming conference. So we encourage them to support us and to support their fellow rescue workers and encourage other trade unions to donate directly to it. We have another appeal we're going to be launching too, which is also arises from the Miners' Union, but and it's for some workers who are in an anti-aircraft unit in the Sumy region to buy them a pickup truck, which we've done on a number of times for units in the army. In addition to that, I wanted to just, and I won't keep you for long, but say something about the demonstration we are calling. And I think it's important to remember, as you know, we're looking at the horrific consequence of the war, that nearly 25% of Ukraine is occupied, and that is not a terrain which is an empty space. People live there and are under occupation. And particularly, there are a great many children. Since the war began, 1.6 million children have been badly affected, including under the occupied territory. And that's nearly 20% of the country's child population. And the Russians are adopting a very specific and quite horrific policy towards children. And it involves indoctrination in the schools which they run, militarization, so they're re-educating people to be Russians as opposed to Ukrainians. They're militarizing people and even at young ages forcing people into Russian military academies and then into the military to fight against their own country. They've been engaged in forced adoptions, seizing children from orphanages, forcibly adopting them to Russian families, including members of the Russian government have been engaged in this, and indeed also the cases of trafficking and exploitation of children. It's known in the early period of the war, and the Ukrainian authorities have now identified that the Russians abducted 19,556 children. Some independent estimates put that figure at nearly 40,000. the Russian authorities are boasting that they have relocated to Russia 700,000 children, and they have filtration camps and re-education centres, and they have announced only recently a further movement of children into Russia. What's happening is, as the philosopher Zizek said, almost a new type of crime, a new type of war crime. And so we need to raise this. It highlights the brutality of the occupation and also the plight of these children, and only a small number have been rescued. So we are demanding that the government here and the West needs to take robust measures to strengthen the position of Ukraine, to be in a position to get these children back, if not to end the occupation itself. And so we've called a demonstration on Sunday the 1st of June, assemble at Marble Arch, and it is supported by the British Trade Union Congress, by a number of Ukrainian organisations in Britain, the Campaign for Ukraine, and CESFI, and a number of others. And it's supported by 3 organisations in Ukraine who are engaged in rescue work and rehabilitation of children, including the Save Ukraine Centre in Kyiv, and President Zelensky's initiative, Bring Back Kids. So we want to make this a big success. It's a difficult time. A lot of people are resigned almost to a belief the war is over. The war isn't over. There is no peace. And we can't let this go, because a Trump-Putin deal wouldn't have any interest in the fate of these children, or indeed the people in the occupied territories. And more than anything, the fate of these children illustrates the reality of Russian rule, of the brutal Russification that has taken place. So as a movement, we can show we're taking the lead by mobilising for this. NEU and UCU are supporting this demonstration, actively supporting it. They will be on the demonstration. Their leaders will be speaking. We'll have the banners. So we want to get as many people from schools and universities, people that work on a daily basis with young people, to come out and show a show of force that we haven't forgotten Ukraine, and we won't let them forget these children.
Thank you, Chris. I know we're getting a little bit late. Ivanna's had to leave, but I'm going to be in Ukraine at the end of June, so I'll get a chance to catch up with her to see how we can all work together a little bit more. I just wanted to see if Rue wanted to speak for a couple minutes, because he has a really good idea of what the drones are needed for, that we're raising money for, and that type of thing. Go ahead, Rue.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Hi, everyone. Yes, so I was just recently in Pavlograd. The purpose of the trip was to provide aid to the military there. We were delivering a vehicle to the Marines infantry who's fighting near the Pokrovsk region, and also providing drones to the 25th Brigade, where I have a friend who's a drone pilot there. And when I was in Pavlograd, I also spent quite a lot of time with a local volunteer, Alexander Bolotin, who's actually the regional head for social affairs of the Independent Trade Union of Miners of Ukraine. This is just to explain that there is a big intersection between local volunteer organizations, the trade unions, particularly in that region, the Independent Trade Union of Miners of Ukraine, and the support for the military. With regards to the current aid project for the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign, this is not for the military directly. This is for, in that region, I mean, this is for the local firefighters for the 10th Mining Rescue Squad, who operate in the mines of the Western Donbass region. They also work in cooperation with the local DSNS, so the local firefighters in civilian rescue operations and firefighting. The reason why they need drones is primarily because the drones are used to visualize and assess the impact of a fire or destruction of some area. And it allows them to see what access routes have been blocked, what is the best way to engage in the rescue operation. It allows them to see if there are any people around. It allows them to work in a more safely mannered, so to speak. And this is why it is a very important appeal. They have been bombed. Their headquarters in Dobropilya have been bombed just a few days after I left Pavlovgrad. There was a lot of damage, including damage on the vehicles themselves. Part of the unit is in Dobropilya, part of it is in Pavlovgrad. They continue to be there. After all, this is their cities, their towns. They are not going anywhere, but they do need our help. The Ukraine Solidarity Campaign has been active in providing aid to them in the past, namely in November, with 2 vehicles that were delivered and lots of equipment for generators, cutting metal, all sorts of equipment that was useful for them. Right now, what they need the most is really drones so that they can operate in a more safe way. So please, any kind of help is very valuable for them.
Thank you. Thank you. I know we've gone quite late, but did anybody have any questions, or if anybody wanted to make any other comments? I was going to say the disinformation bit is particularly, the war is bad enough, but the disinformation is just like an extra wound, because, oh, Mike's got his hand up too, because I know that Ukrainians are so generous and it makes it particularly difficult. And I think about when Mike was talking that when I was there in 2012 or 2013, I remember going for dinner and bowling with an interracial couple and a gay couple. And I would have just thought I was in Western Europe. So it's a tricky one, but go ahead, Mike.
Anna, it was really interesting hearing what your initiative is doing, and there was an awful lot there about different ways to support. Is there a way that you could, have you got the links with Natalie and the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign, just so that I can get more information from you?
Yes, yes, actually. Chris and Natalie invited me to speak today. Yes, we are in contact, and I will be on the 1st of the March.
Oh, good. Okay, I'll try to come down to London too. I don't know, Mike, if you're not going to be around, will you? But yeah.
Yeah. So please take my links, and yeah, we can communicate.
Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, I think we're going to finish soon because it's been a really good meeting. I want to say I hope the various education unions can work together in terms of staging some joint events, and not only, NEU and UCU, but also let's invite people of some of those teacher unions who are not yet affiliated to Ukraine Solidarity Campaign, and invite them to come along and hear about these issues too, because there's so much that we can do in the way of education support. I mean, a couple of the things we got behind from UCU was the collection for the generators for the Ukrainian universities, so people could go on studying rather than, because obviously if it's freezing cold, you've got no electricity and no internet, it does limit the capacity to study. And, also support for schools in terms of educational materials, learning materials. So there are things we can do which are about keeping Ukrainian education alive. And obviously we have a job of work to do of educating our own members too about the situation. Because some people might be thinking the war's going to end soon, there's going to be peace. Well, occupation is not peace. And that's what we have to explain to people. We have to explain that, war crimes are still happening in the occupied territories. And we have to talk to people who just say welfare, not warfare. Now, we absolutely are in favour of supporting welfare. We condemn all cuts to tax on welfare provision. We actually think the British government was wrong. And this is where I think Chris was talking about things that are unhelpful, to say we're going to fund military expenditure by cutting the foreign aid budget. That's, we absolutely condemn the cut to the foreign aid budget. But what we have to explain to people is that, well, warfare, not welfare sounds very nice. There are some people who didn't choose to fight wars, but they're in a situation where they've been invaded and they've had to fight back. And that slogan doesn't work for their situation because it doesn't make any sense. And we shouldn't accept that the two things are just linked. You can have one or the other. You can, if you need to fund defence spending because your country's under attack, you can tax the rich, or other ways you can find the expenditure besides cutting the welfare budget. So I think we do need to have that debate with people to say, please think it through. You're looking at it from the situation of being in a country which is at peace, but not everybody's in that situation. And for people who are in a different situation, who, absolutely need welfare like everyone else, but also have to fight a war because otherwise they won't have any welfare, they won't have anything. This slogan doesn't work. And I think we need to think about how we can get people to think again about some of these slogans, some of these sort of almost automatic responses people have to some situations, which is partly about tackling disinformation, but it's also just making sure people do have the information they actually need to have. But I think we should perhaps finish soon. I think it's been, I see our numbers are dwindling a bit, but so thank you to everyone who stayed to the end. But, we will be taking up Ukraine Solidarity, we hope, at UCU Congress, and I'm sure it'll be happening at other union conferences too. As Chris said, we are getting more unions affiliated to the Ukraine Solidarity Campaign. I hope we can continue to build support and solidarity. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
I just want to add one apology, because Tatiana, who is the teacher we helped fundraise lights for the teaching in the bomb shelter and STEM kits, she couldn't be here today because she's at the funeral of a fallen soldier in his 20s. And that's one of the important things to remember too, is that if Ukraine's not given Western weapons, there's teachers raising money so that their students have support in the military, and volunteers raising money for drones. And on the generosity, after we sent all that, I've gotten the billion thank yous from Tatiana, but she had sent me these like dolls that her colleague makes. And I said, we really need to get more of these made and sell them on Etsy. So I've actually got these two and about 4 more little Ukrainians that came just this week, and we're going to have them at the Congress table as well to fundraise for Ukraine. So I always think these little faces make me a little bit brighter, because it's been quite a heavy webinar. But thank you so much to everyone for sharing. I'm glad we could make these connections too. And still, I hope next Vyshyvanka Day I can celebrate with food and maybe go to Skadovsk or something for a swim. I don't know. Those are my hopes. So thank you everyone for such a wonderful webinar and for sharing your time.